All right. Now, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to continue discussing your assignment 1 stories. So we have a bunch of remaining stories to get through. So let's, just jump right in. So who would like to talk about your story first today? I guess of the people who have not yet gone. All right, Alex. Let me scroll to my notes here. Yes, so the little engine that could continued story.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so shall I give the quick lowdown?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So the little engine that could, the basic story, gets to the town, everything's happy. But then years later, the clown who rode up with the train now has a school where he is teaching other trains to be strong. And the little engine does not like it. So yes, that is the premise.
Yeah, it's a good summary. And what sort of feedback would be most helpful to you? Like, what are you?
Yeah, I would love to hear about any points in the story that don't seem to flow very well, or where there seems to be a lot of information missing. It felt there was a lot of creative freedom here. So definitely there were creative gaps that I creatively left. So if you have suggestions for where that could be done, I'd love it.
Yeah, cool. So what feedback do you have for Alex? Who would like to jump in? Oh, yeah, Kareem. Oh, did you unmute yourself because you wanted to say something, or no, just by accident? No.
I'm sorry, something just happened on my computer.
Okay, would someone else like to jump in? Yeah, Emily.
One thing I know we discussed it like a little bit in the chat, I think on Monday, but I really loved how you used different voices. That was like really powerful. And it made it feel a lot like a story I'd be listening to, especially since there was different characters involved. So I thought that was super great. And I also liked that at the end there was like a message and like you learned something, and it had like a nice positive ending to it. So I thought that was super great. And I think one thing, this might just be me because I don't really like, I have heard the story, but it's also like not a story that's like off the top of my head, the little engine that could. I would have loved like a sentence or two, like summarizing, like I didn't know about the clown that much, so like that would have been helpful for me, but that could just be me like not being familiar with this very popular story, so not sure.
Cool, yeah.
I really like the images you used. I think they are like in motion, like they are pictures, but they have a sense of movement in it.
Cool. Do you could you point to like what specifically you think conveyed the movement or the emotion that you're talking about, or what were you picking up on there?
I think it's kind of like the scene Alex was depicting is not like a fixed thing, like people are sitting around and it's always in kind of in movement, like the choices he made to choose those scenes or those, like you can say, photo shots of movements.
Yeah, so like some just to build on that, but I don't want to give all my comments yet, but until everyone's had a chance to speak, but just to build on that idea, I mean, I also thought the images were very effective. I thought, your choice of like line style was, I think to me that like conveyed motion and emotion, and like, you did a nice job of, so facial expressions are like a really effective way to convey emotion. Like that's how we often convey emotion, I guess, pre-mask wearing, but it was at least at one point in humanity's history, an effective way to convey emotion. And we're used to processing emotional faces. And Alex, you did a nice job of like having your trains have, and I guess the clown too, have like facial expressions that you had like there was like the climbing up the hill when you had like the kind of, everything was very bold lines and dark, and it was like it was like, okay, determination, but with like a kind of negative valence anger twist to it. And then there's another point where like there was kind of like a like almost like a grimacing face with like lots of teeth, and that was another way of like, that I thought was really effective at conveying like threat and danger and anger. And like, you also had like kind of sad or like, expressions that I thought those worked well too. So yeah. Okay. Who else would like to add comments on Alex's story? Okay.
Well, I really enjoy how partially personify some of the characters in the story. It's not like I don't know, but this gives me a kind of like a strong contrast of a clone who we all know can speak versus an engine that is intentionally personalized. I like this idea a lot of what is personified and who are they interacting with, who they're interacting with. Yeah, that's what I feel, what I like the most about the story. And is there anything I want to say as an advice? I will say that 2 years, it's a bit abrupt to me. I don't know if only me who got it, but when you say like 2 year passes, everything is happening like that, it's a little bit abrupt. Maybe you can phrase it in a different way. Yeah, just want to say.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good observation too. Yeah, or does anyone else want to comment on or follow up or?
I just thought the visuals, the drawings were very effective. Yeah, I think you also kind of touched upon like how you conveyed the emotions through like the facial expressions, and then I really liked how you played with like the different eye movements and also like the eyebrow shape, like they're like angry or sad or kind of confused, or it was like very like easy to understand what was going on. Yeah.
Allison.
Alex, we're still a nice job. I know this was the last class, but I thought the voices were great. I guess some things I was thinking about was the first was, so I'm actually not that familiar with the story, The Little Engine That Could. Like, it was helpful that you explained it, but I don't know if it's based off a book, but if it is, maybe you could add in an image of the book itself, just as like a reference to it. And then the second thing I was thinking about was, maybe this is overthinking, but was there like a concern, I don't know, in the original book too, that like the train would be portrayed as selfish because they were burning all the coal? Because if they're using coal as an energy source, like I understand in a way, like they're doing it because they don't want to overwork the other trains. But if this is the coal, like energy source for the whole town, then is the whole other town basically like being screwed over, or like, are they going to have an energy problem? So I don't know if like there's some way to put as a like disclaimer, like the train character is selfless, they have other energy sources for the town. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, Alex, do you want to respond or you don't have to?
No, I think it'd be funny if there were like very clearly solar farms on the hills as they're climbing up. But yeah, you bring up a good point. There were definitely some important details that I left out that made the train sections feel like very severe. And I'm glad that you're pointing that out as something that you picked up on too. I wasn't sure if it would come across that way, or if somehow the story would kind of help gloss that over, but good to know.
What was your intent there? Did you intend the like little engine that could to kind of have turned a little bit evil, or were you intending? Yeah.
In various ways, I workshopped this idea a lot with the rest of the folks living in my house, and like some of the iterations had it like the train going totally off the deep end, and a lot of those story points were really funny or honestly made for really good story points. And I was like, hey, I think I really want to include these, but then it was hard to figure out exactly what that flow was and what made the most sense for an actual story, and then to pull it all into 5 minutes and make something that was both cohesive and like touched on some of those points and also gave at least a little bit of resolution, instead of just like train goes evil off the wall and like boom, we're done. So
yeah. What else? Anything else?
Based on what you said, I mean, you could also view it as like, maybe it's supposed to be nuanced, like you're supposed to be like, well, like, was it really good what the train did? Because like the train's trying to be in the best people's best interest, or like the other train's best interest. They doesn't want to overwork them, and like, oh, they'll just figure out another energy source. Or like maybe the point is that like these decisions are supposed to be nuanced. Like there's no easy option. So it could be that that was part of the point.
All right. Okay, well, I can, I'll add some of my comments here. So overall, I thought it was really funny and creative. And I really loved the like adult twist on a children's story. I agree the voices and images were great, really effective. Some of your like subtle choices, like, you know, how you spelled school with like coal in it. I thought that was great. I like some where I like at some points I thought you were going to go in a different direction, and so which isn't problematic or good if there's no like valence to it, but like after the meeting in the bar, I was expecting like the little engine was going to go maybe into smuggling or some like, because I was like, he's carrying stuff, so or like maybe some other sort of like criminal activity, like a Ocean's 11 sort of situation where like the train is the muscle that's gonna like, you know, add to the team and complete the team. I also thought like the fire was like, I thought it was like delightfully dark and morbid, and then it didn't end up like as shocking as I thought it could have been. So I thought, like, I guess I felt like that could have been another opportunity. Like things kind of ended on a positive note, like trains can now pursue their passions and play all day. But like where I was imagining that going, maybe I'm cynical and morbid, but I was like, what if, like, I was thinking maybe the train's gonna like go out in a fiery blaze of glory and like destroy itself and the bridge that's like connecting the town to its supplies. And then like, you know, you could end the story with like the town withers away and the trains like rust apart, and maybe the clown like regrets what could have been, or like curses the train back or something like that, because, you know, the train ruined everything. Different direction that could have been. Overall, I thought like the story was just like really well done, great, really entertaining. Like I laughed out loud at several points, and it was interesting because, you know, on one hand the story was kind of utterly absurd, but I thought it also worked because you grounded it in like concrete plot points for one, so it had a cohesive plot despite, you know, trains don't talk, there's a lot, you know, it's not a factual story, but the plot still flowed, and there were kind of rules to the universe in the story. And then I thought humor also helped to kind of connect with the audience. And then, as I think I mentioned last class, like I'm super familiar with that story because I have a young child, but like, to me, that helped also connect with your story, because it as soon as I knew what story you were kind of building off of, that filled in for me, like just very quickly, some of the background that was needed to like set the stage for the story. So like in the story, it's probably been a while since many of you have read this story, if you've even read it, but like, the trains and the toys talk, and that's perhaps different from the reality we live in, but that's part of the rules of the story. And maybe just from the title, even, you got a sense like, okay, the train like tried something and thought it could, and then succeeded. And then that was nicely integrated into the plot too, even if you don't remember the details of there was a clown or there wasn't a clown or whatever. I thought it was, my sense is that it was high level enough that it didn't assume too much background knowledge, but also like leveraged what was likely to be background knowledge to convey information quickly, which I think was really effective. Yeah, so it's a great job overall.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you all so much for that feedback. That was super helpful.
Cool. All right, any other feedback on Alex's story before we move on? All right, who would like to go next? All right, Henri, do you want to give like so yours is kind of like the well-behaved child and the Jabberwocky. Do you want to give kind of like a quick overview to remind people?
So it's a little bit like a kindergarten kid trying to rescue her two friends, a dinosaur and a chicken, from Jabberwocky. And I fear that there are so many things can be improved. So I appreciate any comments.
All right. Just like, broad general feedback you're looking for? Okay. All right, what feedback do you all have for Henri?
I guess I can start. The drawings were really good. I'm assuming you drew them yourself. Yeah, they were really well done. I was really impressed. Was this like based kind of like Alex's off of an existing story, or did you create this whole universe?
Jabberwocky is inspired by Alice in Wonderland, but the other two friends are my like random inspirations.
Okay, so I guess maybe like I didn't know what the reference to it was. So I don't know if it's possible to add some kind of like context at the beginning of the setting, or like if you're drawing off of Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if you can directly state that, just to kind of like give some more context, and especially like for the two characters, Mr. Textual Evidence and his Sir Sound Argument, their names themselves, I thought there must be something more to the names, but I wasn't sure, like maybe we were supposed to have gotten that reference from somewhere else, but it went over me. So I don't know if it's possible to explain why those names are given, because it seems like those are very specific.
Actually, this is a little bit like, I don't know how to say autobiographical, because it's actually like I never get the poem of Jabberwocky, and to some extent I am the little girl in the story, and because I'm also a literature major, so I'm trying to use my friend, or kind of I'm trying to get to know them. I'm trying to find my argument and my evidence.
Yeah, so that's really helpful. So I don't know if it's possible to like, and also that I feel like that adds more meaning to it. I don't know if it's possible to add that in the beginning or even at the end, like kind of to give that more context. And I'm not like familiar with the piece of, are you referring to Alice in Wonderland or are you referring to something else?
I think I'm more like referring to only the Jabberwock is a poem in Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, I'll have to Google it. I'm just not familiar with it. But
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, so that's really helpful. Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you.
What other feedback do people have?
And with Allison, your illustrations were absolutely incredible. And I love them throughout the story. It gave a lot of like richness and detail to everything. And I was thinking about the scene where, or a couple of scenes where the main character is finding her friends. And I wondered if you might be able to give a little bit more detail on like what the challenges were that she was facing. It seemed a little bit like it was just generally difficult, but then by reaching out to other people or like seeing what other people were doing, she just like got it. And then towards the end of the story, I really liked how you had like a really crisp, clean resolution where everything came together in a nice way. So good job with that.
Thank you.
What else? Yeah, Kareem, and then Allison.
Well, first off, the illustrations were really cool and really like intriguing while watching the whole thing. But what I also enjoyed is how you introduced every character. I feel like that guided us through the story, and I also enjoyed the poem that was referenced in the story. I feel like that was kind of immersive.
Cool. Allison, did you have another comment?
Yeah, so I just Googled Jabberwocky and it says that the poem is meant to be nonsensical. I guess it's supposed to like tell a story, but so I guess you're saying you were trying to understand this poem, but if the poem's nonsensical, like, how do you reconcile that? Because it doesn't seem necessarily like your fault you didn't understand it. Oh, that was a question. I guess my question is like,
Yeah.
Did you have,
yeah, I guess my question for you is like, so if this poem, again, this is just a quick Google search, it says it's a nonsense poem. So I guess like, is it meant to be understood or like, because you're like, I guess the whole thing is like, you're trying to understand it, but if it's a nonsense poem, how does that like reconcile into that?
Thank you. I will think about it because I know it's not like a poem of nonsense, but I always believe there is a way to understand it. It is only me who could not find it, but yeah.
So I just pasted in the poem to the chat if people want to read it. It's true that it's got, nonsense. So many of the individual words, although not all of them, are not real words. But, it uses like onomatopoeia and like standard grammatical constructs to convey some meaning. So it's not like just completely random sequences of letters. There's some, whether it connects or not with, each of you individually, the poem can be read as having some structure to it. So it's not necessarily, it's like, it's nonsense in a sense, but also not necessarily devoid of meaning. So, there's some subtlety there. Okay. So I can add some of my comments here. One thing I noticed is I liked how I liked some of the details that you included, especially in the beginning, like how the main character's overall pocket made her feel like a kangaroo. I thought that was like a, not driving the plot forward, but those sorts of details can help paint the scene. I also thought so that was great. I also felt like the main character's friends, like textual evidence and sound judgment, might be related to their actions. Like that's what properties or behaviors. When you first introduce them, but like I thought that was like a kind of avenue of potential that I didn't feel like was fully followed up on in the plot. But it was lots of interesting potential there. Overall, to me, I maybe this was an intentional decision, but to me, the narrative felt a little like abstract to me, and so I had trouble connecting with it. I think, or like to feel a connection with the characters. I think mostly because it was hard for me to follow like what was happening. So one reason could be like the descriptions were very high level. So like, you mentioned like a character's being protected from dangers. Like that could have been kind of fleshed out into its own mini story. And then like, you introduce the Jabberwocky as a character or monster, possibly a threat. I thought that sub-story also has potential. And like just one idea that could be a possibility is like, maybe the nonsense things that Jabberwocky says or does could like be part of a mystery, and then the friends could like use textual evidence like the words and other literature, and then like sound arguments like logic or interpreting complex evidence in a convincing way to solve the mystery. So that could have like connected the names of the characters to their actions and kind of integrated with the like idea of the kind of nonsense Jabberwocky poem. I also thought, or sorry, did you have? No, okay, just a microphone click there. I also thought like a few of the plot points seemed disconnected to me. Like when the Jabberwocky appeared, it seemed not fully connected to the previous plot event, which I think was like introducing characters. And then like the fairy lady appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. So my kind of feedback there is like in fantasy stories, the rules can certainly be very different from our universe's rules. But like it's helpful to give the reader a sense of how the rules work in the fantasy universe. So like if it's just anything is possible at all, like new characters and solutions can just like appear with no forewarning or relevance, then like, it's not necessarily bad per se, but it can just make it more challenging to create tension or empathy with the characters or like suspense. So, something to consider. I also agreed that the illustrations were really great. They were very expressive. They were visually pleasing, and you did a great job with those. And they were, well connected to things that were happening. And I thought the visuals made things easier to understand. So that was really helpful. So overall, I think you did a nice job. And I think that I'm excited about the potential the story has to there's a lot of cool ideas that I think could be followed up on there and to really kind of take it to the next level. All right. Okay. Any other comments on Fanrui's story before we continue on? All right. Who would like to go next? Anna Maria, I think you had your hand up first, and then Akia.
Right. So my story was kind of about, can you hear me by the way through the mask?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So it was kind of about traveling with ADHD and letting go. And I really wanted to represent like what was going in my head with like sketches contrasted to what's going around with me with pictures. But I feel like I could have done a better job at explaining and introducing that idea. And then something that I'd really like feedback on, which is something I struggle a lot when not just in storytelling, is that I have like a lot of ideas and I have a very like long train of thought in my head, but I kind of have trouble articulating and connecting those ideas like in the story, like in a way that's understandable to others.
So are you looking for feedback on like which parts were understandable or like ideas for like
Yeah,
simplifying
I guess,
or clarifying or that sort of thing?
yeah, if like everything was clear to others, because I kind of struggle with understanding that part, but also like any kind of general feedback is welcome. It's not really close to my major or anything. It's my very first time doing something like this, so any kind of feedback really.
Well, first of all, that's great that you're doing something new. So welcome to storytelling land. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So what feedback does everyone have? Oh, sorry, Anna Marie, did you want to? So this was like a kind of, maybe you already said this. I might have zoned out. I'm sorry. This was a vacation to Rome viewed through like a ADHD main character visit. So okay. Akia, did you have your hand up? And then found Rui.
Yeah, so I really like the inclusion of you like talking about random little things. I think it really showed how your attention worked and demonstrated what it's like to live with ADHD. But that said, it was a little hard to hear it sometimes, but I just turned my volume up and it was fine. And it kind of did make it a little difficult to connect what was happening in the story, but I think the visuals helped with that.
I love the ending because at first I thought like all the drawings were made on paper like separately, but at the end it's on a whiteboard. I think it's kind of like to see like those drawings together make them a unity in a way.
I really enjoyed the parts of the story when it was almost like when Frank was going through his thought process in his head, and you were just like saying exactly what you were thinking in the moment. I think that gave us like more of a perspective of exactly what you were thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sorry, or okay. Well, I guess Emily and then Allison.
Oh,
or
sorry.
if you okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really agreed with that point. Like I really liked how you're like, is this how I pronounce it or is this how I say it? I forgot what the exact, like you were trying to say like thank you or something, and you're like, is it this? Is it that? Like I thought that was super effective in bringing us through your brain. And then I also really liked the images. I feel like they seemed like mental images, like things you could like picture in your brain, like little sketches, and they also like the way you connected them with the lines on the whiteboard and like went from one thing and then you're like, this is how it connects. That I thought that was really effective.
Yeah, first of all, nice job. I enjoyed your story. I agree with what everyone else has said. I like that you had a title slide. I kind of wish I did that for mine, so that was a good idea. A couple of things I was thinking about was first, I don't know if the audience is us, because it's us, this might not apply, but if the audience is a general person, they may not know what dopamine is or how dopamine relates to ADHD. So I was wondering, maybe, I don't know how you made this, but if you made an iMovie, maybe you could just add a title or something, like when you draw out the neurotransmitter, just labeling it or something to like explain how they are connected. And then another question I had was, in the story, you drew a mask, and I wasn't sure if this took place during COVID or why you were in Italy, or like some more context on why you were there. I thought could be helpful.
Yeah, so I live in Italy.
Oh, okay,
so
well,
I was traveling
that's really cool.
During COVID, yeah, but like a weekend trip. But no, you're absolutely right that I should have taken that into account.
Yeah, I think that's actually really cool. That like that's probably a totally different perspective because you actually live in Italy versus a tourist. I wonder if there's some way to add that in.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of both because I'm not Italian, but I do live there. So
Yeah, that's really cool. And then the last thing was you have like a picture of a map in the story and you talk about like where you're going. And I don't know if it's possible to like draw on the map, like the path of where you're going so we could follow it more. Otherwise, I thought you did, I really liked the reflection at the end. I thought you did a great job with the drawings. So nice job overall.
Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the pace. I guess was like, to me, was the most well done, like in the sense that it was kind of a flow conscious and the pace was fast, but not too fast. And then at the end, you have the final board with the summary of all the story, which was very, very effective as a tool. So yeah, these two things were really important because maybe during the story, you feel like you're overwhelmed with details, but then at the end, you can see like a summary of all the story.
You're talking about like zooming out on the whiteboard?
Yeah, because actually the main point from what I perceived is the presence of so many details that may actually make you lose focus from what's important. And then at the end, you see kind of summary of all the story, yes.
Any other comments? Or Alex, yeah.
I thought it was really cool to have that like kind of hectic, like the concept as a whole, the hectic thoughts that exist. Like usually when you think of vacation, you think like, oh, it's very chill and like you're just exploring things kind of at your own pace. But I like how you were able to capture so much of the actual mental chaos that goes into an experience like that as it's happening.
All right. Okay. Well, I have some comments too. Yeah, so I agree with several of your comments. I thought this is a super interesting approach, like viewing Rome through your brain or the narrator's brain. I thought it was like a really nice contrast from a typical, like, here's my vacation story. And I thought the like distractions and cuts gave a really nice sense. Like that was a really effective way of conveying distracted thinking. So that was really well done. It's a tricky balance between like telling a cohesive narrative and using confusion as a storytelling strategy. It's hard to know where to draw that balance. I thought like, you know, I was definitely able to like take away like, you know, you're in Rome and some of the things that you did, and then like the, you know, distracted thinking and how you're handling with that like, you know, the point where your friend is, you know, expecting you to know something and you kind of agreed to like get tickets and but hadn't, and that was a nice point of tension. So it had like some of the traditional storytelling elements, but it was really interesting to have it be filtered through this kind of distracted style. Yeah, so I thought, yeah, really interesting stylistic choice. And I thought for the most part it worked. There were points when I was like confused, but that could arguably be a narrative choice. I also really liked the whiteboard drawings. Like, first of all, they were just, you know, really well executed drawings. And then I also liked the, you know, zooming out to see the big picture at the end. That I thought that was really effective. And then I liked your like ending message, like, you know, isn't it nice to discover something for yourself from time to time? That was a, you know, uplifting note to end on, and, you know, makes it a journey of self-discovery, and always a nice message. So nice job.
okay, thank you. I'm really happy to hear that it was at least somewhat comprehensible, because to me it was very chaotic while I was making it. So I really struggled to pull it together when I was editing. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. All right, let's see. So I think, oh, Akia, you wanted to go next, right? Okay,
Yeah, sounds good.
so you had the Yelp,
So,
kind of the Yelp thing. Oh, sorry, you can provide your summary and maybe like you could say what feedback you're looking for from the class too.
yeah, so essentially what I did was my an eating experience that I had in the form of like a Yelp review. Like I made a little website, made Gulp instead as a take on Yelp. And essentially what I'm looking for feedback in on, like I wanted it to feel natural and not like I was reading off of something, so I didn't have like a text to read off of. So I was wondering if like balancing sort of like being able to come up with concrete plot points like off the cuff, but also like still coming off as natural and not robotic, like I'm reading off of something.
Cool. All right, so what feedback do you all have? Emily, and then Kareem.
I really liked the style and the humor you had. I felt like I really liked how you went into the review website, and it almost felt like someone who was like making like a YouTube video discussing their experience and like a casual sort of like vlog kind of thing. I thought that's what it felt like in a sense. So I thought that was a super cool choice. And I really liked how you went really in depth into that one dish specifically to give some like insight into here's what I didn't like about this restaurant. And I think it would have been cool if you would even gone into like more other dishes you had potentially ordered, because I know you mentioned you ordered like a few small plates, and I would have loved to hear even more, because I think that would have like even like solidified it more than like that one story, even though I feel like I definitely got from that one story what like some problems you had were, but I feel like I just loved hearing about that one, so I could have like even heard more.
Kareem and then Anna Marie.
I'm not sure whether or not I misheard you. Did you say you used the script or did not use the script?
Oh, I did not use a script.
I think so. When I was doing mine, I was considering doing that too, and I think it showed that I don't know. Personally, I would say like it's a better strategy because I felt like in your story, I didn't feel like it was choppy at any point because like you're trying to find your words or whatever. It was almost like free flowing and like a real like story that you just tell your friend. So I really enjoyed that part.
Anna Marie.
Yeah, I thought the beginning kind of set the scene very well with like the Googling part. I thought that was like a nice intro. And it was also really nice to, see someone's face while they were telling their story. I thought that was also like a really kind of adds a personal touch to a story. And also like expressions, yes, kind of not used to them now behind masks, as you mentioned, but it was nice to see that.
What else?
Was there? Go ahead.
Alex and then Allison.
Yeah, I think I noticed in there like one cut. I don't know if there were more, but it was really well done. And yeah, you definitely sustained the story on both sides of that. And I think that, like others have said, your facial expressions and the movements that you made with like your gestures and like all of that really lent a very casual feel to everything you were doing.
Allison, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did. First of all, great job. I think I said this last time, but it was super funny and entertaining. Some comments I had was, I guess if you're going, were you going for it to be like a YouTube vlog on a Yelp-like page, or? Yeah, okay. So I guess I was wondering, like, because typically for a few things, the first was it looked like for your description of the video, I'm gonna be honest, it looked like a syllabus like description.
Yeah, that didn't match it at all. Yeah.
It looked like the syllabus for neuro econ or something.
Yeah, I forgot to change that at the end, but I was like, hey, no one's gonna notice.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so if you could make that related to the something about like review for this restaurant, that would probably be helpful. And then I know sometimes for YouTubers, like they'll have like an intro or something, like they'll introduce themselves, or like they'll have like a logo or a handle or something. I think you did have a handle, but I don't know if there's some way to like introduce yourself as like, I'm a food vlogger and I go to Dartmouth, and because the restaurant's a real restaurant too. So, and then The third thing was I was wondering if maybe you would food. Is this based on a true story, or I was curious? It is on a true.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately so.
I was wondering if like you had any photos of the food. And no, you don't.
I didn't
Okay.
take pictures. No, sorry.
I guess it wasn't picture worthy. And then the last thing was, I think at the end, like, so it feels like it's like us as the viewer are watching it. So I wonder if there's some way at the end for like the viewer to be like, I don't know, read a comment or something that says like, oh, like, thanks for this video. Like, I'll now not going to go there or something. Just because like, yeah. But overall, good job.
Yeah, so like click here to subscribe or click below to subscribe, give me a like. It really helps. Every little bit help, or something like that to kind of get into the vlogger. Yeah. Elisa, yeah.
Yeah, as someone said, I really enjoyed the cut at a certain point because I had the time to laugh, and but I also thought, like, although it was very funny and entertaining, the beginning, that the starting was too long for me. Like, I perceived that you didn't have a script and was maybe too long for an introduction because I couldn't feel I couldn't feel like what was behind what you were saying at the beginning. So yeah, but then like after probably the first 1 minute and a half, it was really flowing and funny. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I had a few comments too. I'll just try to keep things moving. So yeah, I also really like the effects at the beginning, the Googling and like framing as a food reviewer. It seemed like a real vlogger. Like, I learned a new word. Yeah, but I've definitely seen those videos. It fit in really well. I agree. There might have been, like, in follow up to Allison's comment, those are good ideas for making it even more realistic, but it definitely worked for me. I personally did like the introduction. I thought like the, help set, frame things and set the stage and, built tension and expectations. So that worked for me. Same thing doesn't work for everyone. So, Elisa, your comment is also valid there. Then I thought your decision to add like auditory effects to set the ambiance, like that was a neat design decision. I thought it started it started and stopped a little abruptly for me. It might have helped to like fade it in more gradually, or like to make it a little more subtle. But I thought it did help like set the atmosphere. And so it was a neat idea. Also, just like the whole description, like very much reminded me of my first tapas experience. Like I went to an Asian tapas place in Philly, and like I ordered pad thai, which is like my, one of my favorite meals, and it like came as like a smoothie served in a shot glass, and I was like, what is it? And I was just like, and it was like $20, which I was in grad school, and that was like a lot of money for me. And I was like, what even is this? And I just didn't get it. And yeah, so I totally connected with the like, wait, a piece of a plantain is not, yeah, it doesn't count. Yeah. And then at one point you were like shaking your head, and like you had a lot of great expressions in there, but the head shake, yeah, whatever you did, that was perfect. Yeah, so very well done overall. I thought it was great. All right. Okay, so I think we have 2 left. We have Kareem and Aliza. So both of the mountain climbing stories. Who would like to go first? Okay, Kareem.
So my story was about when I hiked up a mountain for the first time, which is something that I wouldn't typically do, and just what I learned from it and what my biggest takeaways were from it.
Cool. Okay. What feedback do people have for Kareem? Louisa.
I didn't want to overlap with the story when I thought I could have used the story, but I really think that we approach the same kind of similar experience very differently. And also like the moral at the end was quite different. But I really enjoyed the drawings. I think were like very on point. And you know, sometimes in the drawings there were things that weren't in the oral part, so that was also kind of funny, with at least with the pros and cons, for example. And yes, and I think it was really also not abstract. So at the end, my story was too abstract, I think, and his one was more visible, in a sense, like you could actually see what was happening.
I guess I can go. Nice job. I thought it was very entertaining, was definitely laughing. It was very relatable with the college part. I liked that the text itself was very conversational, and I like that you set the scene in the beginning. Two comments I had were, one was I was a little bit confused on the transition from talking about the college essays to hiking Mount Kilimanjaro. So I don't know, like, if, and I could be making this up, like why you decided to sign up if you already were so busy with college essays. I don't know if you did it because you wanted something to talk about in a college essay, or you're like, oh, there's a low probability I'm even going to get in, but just something to connect of like how you got from one to the other. And then the second was, maybe I liked at the end that you did mention you made it to the top of the hike, but I was wondering that sooner. So I was wondering if you could mention, if it's possible to mention that sooner. Otherwise, great job.
Great. Emily.
I thought this was a super cool experience you had, so I'm really glad that you shared it, because that was like something like, I don't know if it would have come up otherwise in class, for example. So it was cool to like hear the story. And I really liked how you had some humorous parts involved when you like got to that one point, and then you're like, you thought that was so hard and you thought that was the summit, and then you learned like, actually no, like I have to keep going. But then you like made that like a nice message there. And then I also liked at the very end how you put the photo and you're like, you couldn't even see me. Like I thought that was funny too. And it was like, oh, it's kind of like about the experience. Like you don't necessarily, I feel like it kind of is like, sometimes people feel like they have to take photos of everything to like prove they were there. And like, you just really enjoyed the experience and then share that with us. And like, even though you couldn't see you, it was still worthwhile.
Alex and then Frank.
Yeah, excellent work, Kareem. I really liked like when you said in class that you couldn't see you in the photo, I was like, you could probably at least see like its face or something, but no, not at all. That was pretty funny. And I liked how you were showing kind of that decision point partway through the hike where a lot of people turned back. And I wonder if you might be able to build up the emotional like chargedness of that moment a little bit more, because I've been on some hikes where we've had to make similar decisions, and sometimes it is like you're so close, and I wonder if you could really build that in a little bit more. But otherwise, great storytelling.
Frank. Oh, you're. Okay.
First of all, it's a really nice story. I love it. I love the hand drawn a lot. I find kind of a humor when you point that person as you. That's real cute for me. And as the story, what I like the most is that you had a lot of suggestion from and encouragement from your friends. And I like this double themes. One is about what I want to, what you learn from your experience, and the other is friendship, and like friends supporting each other. I like that idea a lot.
Great. Okay. I can, fine, Marie, yeah.
One last comment would be like, I can imagine that this is a video and also the drawings are made on iPad or something that is not like a horizontal shape, but because it has like I don't know, a phone screen or iPad screen shape. So that is really consistent throughout the video.
Cool. Okay, so let's see, things I noticed. I also really liked the drawings. I thought they were really fun. I thought you had a nice hook right at the beginning, like stress over college applications. I think that's something all recent college applicants can relate to. I liked how you gave insights into your like internal thoughts. That was a nice way to help the audience like connect and empathize. A few things, just like a few minor things kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So one line, you said like your calculations aren't the most accurate. Just like as a stats person, I was like, but you can experience a low probability event and like, you could still compute the probability correctly. Like someone wins the lottery and like also 5% isn't so low. So that, maybe a pet peeve, but I noticed that. And then I also noticed in your like pros and cons list, it said like your mom would kill you, which like I interpreted as, be mad if you don't go. And I was just like, I was a little confused about that because I was like, but it's like a dangerous thing, like, but maybe it's important. So I had trouble like connecting to that, but it was interesting. And then I was also like, I was just like, you mentioned like you had like treadmills in your high school with people with like elevation masks. And I was like, wow, that's I didn't know if mountain climbing was like a big thing or if like where that came from. But I don't think I've ever seen an elevation mask before, but is it just like a mask? But yeah,
it's just like it's like this thing you can wear at the gym and it makes you like not able to breathe very easily, and it's just like super hard out. I don't know, it's just like super extra.
Yeah, so for like extra hardcore training. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so those things like a little bit popped me out of the narrative, just like I had trouble connecting with them, but they were also like good details. So anyways, food for thought. I really liked the just one step advice. Oh, Alex says, I heard those don't actually help with oxygen efficiently. They just
The masks.
make you better at sucking air in. LOL. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So maybe they make your lungs stronger. Yeah, well, anyways, people were using them. So that kind of contributes to the hardcore like persona of some of the people training. Yeah, but the just one step advice, I thought that's just like such great advice. And I thought the ending was like going in a great direction, like carrying the experience forward. And like the very last thing, the summit photo was really funny. I thought it finished, like it ended a little bit abruptly. I thought like one or two more sentences could have really like, finished it off a little bit stronger. Overall though, great story and, great implementation, lots of great stuff there. So nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So that brings us to Eliza, the last story, I think. Do you want to give like a quick summary and then maybe we can get one or two comments and then I can give my kind of rundown.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share the experience, but I wanted to present a different angle. So I thought that maybe an internal dialogue between me and the mountain could reflect what happened inside me when I went at the hike. And yes, I think that at the end, because I had a lot of ideas and to me it was really clear, but then for an external person, maybe starting directly with the dialogue could have been confusing, but then at the end I try like to explain what happened, but I don't know if people could actually understand. So I would like to know whether they understood or not the approach and yeah, the story.
Sure. Maybe we can get one comment in, and then I can give my feedback, and others can share in Slack if you'd like. Oh, Akia, yeah.
Yeah, so I felt like the illustrations were very to the point and connected well to the story and made it clearer where the story was going. And at one point you like stopped drawing and then switched, and like I found that a little abrupt because I thought the story was over, and I was like, oh wait, my bad. But yeah, it overall was pretty interesting, and I thought it had a nice message.
Okay, yeah, Anna Marie, and then I'll jump in.
I just wanted to say that what looked like googly eyes gave the mountain so much personality in my perspective. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, I just love the concept itself. Just, you know, it's a dialogue, but also kind of with yourself, but it's an interesting way of representing that.
Yeah, agreed. So Frank, maybe you could type your comments out in Slack if that's okay. I just had some quick things to say, and I wanted to tell you what's coming next in the class. So I thought the dialogue between your kind of a general approach of the dialogue between the narrator and the mountain, I thought that was really creative. I thought the beginning could have used a little bit more setup. So like sometimes it can work really well to start in the middle of a narrative so that the audience is like immediately immersed. But I thought a little more setup to the beginning of the story could have, you know, helped to kind of set the stage a little more strongly. I think there were some great lessons and opportunities in the dialogue, like what is essential, and like a step up now means a step down later. And like some interesting lessons learned, like taking too much versus too little and working through challenge and that sort of thing. But I thought like those were kind of great opportunities and foreshadowing, but some of them were left a little bit hanging, and I thought they could have been fleshed out a little bit more to kind of really drive those home. And then I thought it was interesting to transition from like the talking mountain kind of magical realism style to like a first person explanation, like kind of a nonfiction historical fiction style. But that transition was like, it felt a little jarring to me. And like, I wonder if the two parts could have been kind of combined, like, you know, working in the details from the second part into the first, like kind of talking to the mountain piece to make it a little more immersive, or, you know, something like that. And then, you know, I liked the end message. I thought it had a lot of promise. It came out like a tiny bit cliche, like the highest mountain is the one inside of me. But it's like a fun message. And I thought there might be like a slightly different way of framing it to make it just like a little teeny bit less, like more subtle maybe, or like, you know, trying to get the audience to like reach a tiny bit themselves and get to get that message by themselves without you explicitly telling them, could also like help tone down the kind of cliche-ness of it. Overall, really great job. I also love the illustrations, and yeah, nicely done overall.
Can I just ask you a question, because I didn't understand? So
sure. Should
I combine the two parts in the sense, should I construct the dialogue and explain after, maybe?
Well, you know, that's just one idea. I thought that might work well to, you know, one way of doing that would be to like kind of add more detail in addition to just having it be kind of a pure conversation as the way of telling a narrative. You could have like interject some other things that happened or add some of those details from the second part into the dialogue in the first part. So it might.
Yeah, I can stick to a dialogue structure, but in the dialogue, I can put more realistic details that happen to me to give
Yeah,
context to the.
that's just an idea though. Like that's not something you have to do, or and I don't know how it would work in practice because you got to tell it in your way. But that was just a thought that came to my mind as I was viewing it. Okay, yeah. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, great job, everyone. Thank you so much for like sharing and discussing your stories. You all did a great job. And remember, if you want, you can incorporate the feedback you've gotten to make another attempt, or you can also just like think about the feedback and like factor it into your other assignments moving forward. So that's up to you. So that closes off module 1 of our course. So next we're going to get into module 2, which is about data stories and like in particular visualizing data. So I want you to start thinking about, without even having gone through the material yet, but like, you want to start thinking about how this first assignment is going to connect with data storytelling. So you might want to like think about what are some similarities and differences between the sorts of narratives that you told for this assignment and data stories. So like, one way of thinking about it is that your stories kind of comprise a main narrative that helps guide the audience's thoughts, and then a visual component to your stories, like that aspect helps to kind of drive home the key points. So can you carry that through when you're kind of using data to convey your story? And then you might want to think about what worked well and what didn't work well for the stories you told in assignment 1, and what might be effective or not for data stories. Okay, so in the interest of time, I have lots of other things to say on that topic, but I'm going to hold off. On Friday, I'm going to do kind of a more traditional lecture. I don't do much of those in this class, but on Friday, we'll do like slides and I'll kind of mostly be monologuing. I want to like just give you a really kind of rapid fire overview of like some tools for visualizing and representing data. And so, if you want to take a look at the slides, they're already on GitHub. So if you want, you can take a look at them in advance. And then to help you get the most out of Friday's lecture, please start going through the module 2 material. You don't have to finish going through it, but starting to go through it will help you kind of get more out of Friday. So have a great rest of the day and see you back on Zoom on Friday. Bye, everyone.
Oh, wait, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Okay, 2 things. One, how far ideally would you tell us to get through module 2 for like, what should we definitely make sure we do for Friday?
So there's a piece on something called the grammar of graphics.
Okay.
And that would be useful. It's kind of a tricky concept, and I'll go over it on Friday, but it takes multiple times to kind of get those ideas. So I think that's probably going to be the most important thing to get through. And then, anything else you can get through will be helpful, but I guess it doesn't matter so much if you review the material after I go through it in my lecture, because you'll still get it multiple times. But, if you want to ask questions, it's good to kind of go in prepped. But, I'm not going to quiz you. And if you don't have time to go through the material, you could just not say anything in class and I won't really notice. And, there will be no consequence, but just for like memory consolidation and, the interest of learning most efficiently, it'd be useful to go through the material.
Okay. And then in terms of like redoing the first assignment, are you gonna like post the grades or the comments, and then from there we can decide if how we want to proceed?
Yeah, so I'll post all the comments to Slack, so you'll
Okay.
all be able to see everyone's comments, and then I'm going to post your grades to Canvas. But I'll do that once. So not everyone has finished their story yet. So
Okay.
once everyone has finished their story, then I'll post the comments and grades. But
Got
I'm
it.
going to wait
Okay.
till everyone's done before doing that.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. All right. Bye, everyone.